City Council grills major agencies on the Brooklyn Day mass shooting.
I promised you everything in my power to hold ourselves accountable.
As BPD admits their failures, we dive into the questions still left unanswered as leaders push for more transparency. The trial continues for a man accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend. We look at the testimony given by the defendant's own brother. Cranked up humidity brings more storms into our area. Our Weather Authority team is timing out the impact.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 4.
Our preliminary assessment is that these were not directly connected to the event.
I'm not sure how that assumption is being made. So either they were reviewed or they weren't reviewed. My mind's boggled as to how it was not completely, fully reviewed.
We have continuing coverage on the fallout from last night's City Council hearing. The council grilled the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement and Baltimore police on their response to the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting.
The council demanding answers on how the massive Brooklyn Day party was allowed to form and what could have been done to prevent the deadly mass shooting. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. The Baltimore Police Department did admit it could have done more to prevent that shooting that killed 2 people and injured another 28 people this month. 20-year-old Kylis Fagbemi and 18-year-old Aaliyah Gonzalez were killed in that shooting. Today, Aaliyah's brother spoke to Fox 45 about their loss.
She's just the type of person that I feel like anybody would want to be around. And I feel like she really made everybody that came across her in life like a better person. I feel like she made everyone a better person that came across her. And it's just, she was taken way too soon. It wasn't her time yet.
Well, police still haven't charged anyone with the shooting or named any suspects.
We have team coverage on what we learned from the hearings last night and the questions that still need to be answered. We're starting with Rebecca Pryor, who has the latest on the BPD response as the police union is now weighing in. Rebecca?
Yes, the department continues its internal investigation into what went wrong. The police union is now firing back, saying that the focus of that investigation is misplaced. Combing through the events and evidence leading up to Baltimore's largest mass shooting to date.
Welcome to the Public Safety and Government Operations Committee meeting.
City Council summoning police leadership to City Hall Thursday.
We missed a lot of points. We missed a lot of indicators that this was happening.
BPD admitting mistakes were made, but a detailed timeline or exactly who knew what, when, remains unclear.
I just pulled up Brooklyn Day on my Instagram right now. And you're telling me that we have an entire unit associated with this and they didn't pick that up?
We're not going to have a lot of the answers within 2 weeks.
Acting Commissioner Worley saying a thorough internal investigation is still underway to determine why 911 calls starting as early as 6:57.
Caller wanted to remain anonymous, states that hundreds of males and females are armed with guns and knives at the location.
Didn't trigger officers to mobilize.
A party of that magnitude, no matter how many officers were in the Southern District, they could not handle that party alone. So they would have had to reach for extra resources, which we had available throughout the city, that we could have sent there.
Do we know if that happened? Or
as far as we know, no.
That line of questioning sparking a fiery response from BPD's police union. FOB President Mike Mancuso taking to Twitter arguing BPD's rank and file are not to blame for the Brooklyn mass shooting. Instead, he says a lack of staff is the biggest mistake, writing, quote, maximizing patrol staffing would have prevented it. According to a Southern District shift report uncovered by Fox 45, the night of the shooting, only 7 officers were scheduled to work when shots rang out. 3 volunteered for overtime, 2 were forced to stay late. And following the shooting, that same shift sending out overtime requests every single day, sometimes for more than half of the total officers that should be on duty.
7 officers in the Southern District is entirely, in my view, is insufficient.
Former BPD Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson agreeing the shortage of manpower likely played a part and deserves further review.
The department just has very, very limited resources. Unfortunately, there's no quick fix here.
Or quick answers. Now, one question that city leaders failed to ask yesterday was when did Acting Commissioner Worley learn about this Brooklyn Day gathering? We asked the department that question today, but they said we'd have to wait for their final report on this issue before we get our answer. That report is expected to be released in the next 30 to 45 days. Reporting live from FOP headquarters, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. The president of Baltimore City's chapter of the NAACP speaking during public comment last night, criticizing acting Commissioner Richard Worley. He, along with the NAACP, spoke out about the mayor's appointment of Worley last month, saying he should have opened up a broader search for Harrison's replacement. Last night, he doubled down on that claim.
This incident, we told you guys this incident was going to happen when we had our last press conference. This is why you need community engagement on the front end before you bring in a police commissioner. So I hope that every member of this council is taking very seriously your responsibility to vet a police commissioner.
The mass shooting was the first major test for acting police commissioner Worley. He took over less than a month before, on June 8th, after former Commissioner Michael Harrison stepped down.
Fox 45 News has been pressing the mayor's office for answers on the abrupt change for weeks. We've asked for a copy of Michael Harrison's resignation letter. The mayor's office refuses to hand it over, saying it's a personnel matter. We've also asked if Harrison was asked to resign or if he resigned of his own accord. Why he resigned just 8 months before his contract ended, and does the public deserve to know the terms of Harrison's resignation? We're learning more about that transition. In an interview with another news outlet, Harrison and Mayor Scott said Worley found out he was chosen as police commissioner less than 12 hours before the announcement was made. In the wake of the mass shooting, the mayor told Fox 45 News his confidence in Worley hasn't changed.
Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live now in the studio to continue our team coverage.
So, Mackenzie, the council grilled interim Monzi director Stephanie Mavronis about the role the public safety agency played in this situation. What are you learning today about the frustrations from some of those council members?
Yeah, Kai and Maxine, a lot of the questions from the council are the same ones we've been demanding answers to for nearly 2 years, especially when it comes to this topic. But really, this all comes down to transparency. How does the Safe Streets program operate? What are the protocols for Safe Streets and Monzi? And how is the money being spent? Now, several council members are demanding to know what's going on, even going as far as calling for a halt to that funding.
We need to know on the council exactly what is going on, where the money's going, who we're employing. And again, at the end of the day, we need to know because the constituents that we represent, they want to know.
How come it took a mass shooting where we saw 30 people shot, 2 dead, for the council to really seem to take an interest in the way Monzi is operating in the Safe Streets program?
I wouldn't just point a finger on Monzi. I think overall, as I mentioned early on, like the government, I think has failed. We all play a role in this. We're all elected officials. And what I'm saying is that if we don't foster that relationship with these city agencies, we're going to continue to fail in Baltimore City. Our city is dying.
Should Monzi be getting the level of funding that it is?
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that money should be held to a halt.
We questioned Mayor Brandon Scott about Glover's comments earlier this morning. The mayor is not backing down on his support for the Safe Streets program or Monzi as a whole.
For anyone to say that their funding should be paused when people have died for the city of Baltimore trying to save lives is just incorrect. It's not going to be done, period.
I have a follow-up. Will you direct your mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement to comply with the questions and provide the information that the council asked for?
I don't know what the questions are. Anyone that thinks that we're going to talk about an open investigation where someone could potentially be a witness in Baltimore, the city that we've seen witnesses killed, that's very irresponsible of anybody to do. We're not going to do that, period.
But that's not exactly what the council is asking for. We'll take a closer look at their concerns and the questions coming up at 5. Live in the studio, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. Stay with us. Coming up at 4:30, we'll be speaking live with Councilman Yitzi Schleifer. Hear his thoughts on the hearing and the calls to freeze funds to Monzi.
The Guardian Angels is critical of Safe Streets' response to the mass shooting. The group says there's no excuse for the lack of communication between Safe Streets workers and the police department. Guardian Angels leader is now calling for the city to increase support for other community intervention programs other than Safe Streets.
When are we going to start including these organizations also? Like I said, we've been doing this for 17 years. There's other groups out there that have been doing it just as long. And we don't get the negative attention. We don't even get the positive attention for what it is we do. One of the things we do know in Guardian Angels is that you can't do anything without the community and with the police department. You can't do anything without them.
That brings us to our question of the day. Do you believe Monzi's funding should be frozen? You can vote right now at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
2 people have been arrested 3 weeks after a woman was shot in Northeast Baltimore. The 52-year-old woman survived. She was shot on Montebello Terrace, that's right by Morgan State University. Police have charged 42-year-old Tyrone Malden with shooting the woman. They're also charging 32-year-old Marie Glenn for her role in the shooting.
There was a shooting in Baltimore last night. Police say around 1 in the morning, a 22-year-old man was shot in the leg and took himself to a Baltimore County hospital. According to police, that man was shot in northwest Baltimore along Gwynns Falls Parkway. Anyone with information on the shooting should contact city police.
Another postponement today in that bail hearing of a 19-year-old charged with the murder of a Parkville student. 19-year-old Freedom Brown is now the 3rd person who will be charged with shooting and killing 17-year-old Elias Sislak. His murder happened near the Towson Town Center back in April. The court postponed his bail hearing today to Monday to give him time to connect with a public defender. As we've reported, Brown has also been linked to the deadly robbery of a 24-year-old in Baltimore City. That occurred back in June of 2021, but an arrest warrant was issued just days before the Towson murder.
And this just into Fox 45. Baltimore boxer Gervonta Tank Davis has been released from jail. It comes 6 weeks after a judge revoked his home detention in a 2020 hit and run. Early this year, Davis was ordered to serve the detention at his longtime coach's home in Baltimore, but the court found out that he was staying at a Four Seasons hotel. His new attorney had been fighting to modify that sentence. We don't have any reaction from Davis or his attorney at this time. This afternoon, he tweeted a saluting face emoji. Should the mayor have been involved when the city awarded his now girlfriend's organization a grant? Why his office says there was no conflict of interest.
It's been over a year since a family paid thousands for a gravestone that never came. Fox 45 is looking for answers on what's made it so difficult for them to finally put their loved one to rest.
And the accused killer's brother takes a stand in his defense today. The latest developments from court in the trial over Akia Egleston's death.
And rain and storms are moving east across the state. I'll let you know when we see storms around the Baltimore area and what to expect for the rest of the weekend coming up in my full forecast.
Fox 45 News, winner of 16 2022 Regional Emmy Awards, more than all other Baltimore news stations combined.
Continuing coverage tonight in the murder trial of Michael Robertson. He's the man accused of killing his pregnant Baltimore girlfriend back in 2017.
And in court today, 4 witnesses testified. Alexa Ashwell was there and joins us live with the very latest on the trial. Alexa?
Kai Maxine, one of those witnesses, Michael Robertson's brother, he testified he saw the defendant and spent some time with him on May 3rd, 2017, the day investigators believe Akia Egleston was killed. Other witnesses who took the stand during questioning today, Akia Egleston's biological father, a man who worked with Robertson when Akia disappeared, and the mother of the other woman investigators say Robertson was dating and had children with back in 2017. In total, 15 witnesses have been called by the state, the majority friends or family of Akia, to seemingly help create a timeline of her final interactions and communications, as well as those of Michael Robertson. Yesterday, we heard that emotional testimony from a bank manager as the state played surveillance video of Akia withdrawing cash back on May 3rd, 2017. It was one of the last times Akia was seen alive. Akia's family outside court today.
Every day. This is the most important thing right now in my life, to make sure that Akia gets justice. We already talked about the day Akia was at the bank. So now we're talking about the whereabouts of Mr. Robertson. So it seems like there's a roadmap for the prosecution that they're just going to follow. And it's slow and deliberate for a reason.
What exactly these witnesses testified today, as well as the concern that remains with one witness failing to show up, I'll have that at 5:15. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News has been following this story since the disappearance of Akia Egleston. We'll bring you the latest developments right here on air and online at foxbaltimore.com.
We're tracking rain across the state tonight. You're taking a live look at our weather radar. The Inner Harbor and Towson, some scattered storms expected to move through the area this evening.
That's right. Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax has the latest on what you can expect through the rest of the evening.
Hopefully a cool down.
Yeah, we need it, right? Goodness.
Oh, I would love that. But unfortunately, it's not coming our way. We are one of the many parts around the country dealing with very hot temperatures. We've got a stretch of 90s continuing through the weekend and even into next week. We're also looking at rain chances continuing. Right now, we're keeping track of showers and storms moving across the state. Now, the severe storms that we're seeing are currently in Virginia. In Maryland, we're more so seeing some pockets of heavy rain, along with thunder and lightning. We're even seeing a couple of pockets of heavy rain closer to the Baltimore area, but that line will continue to move east over the next few hours. If you have any plans this evening, make sure that you have the rain gear handy as we deal with an unsettled pattern. It's not just us, but much of the region dealing with a few showers and storms. We've got a cold front that will work its way across the region as we head into the weekend, leading to more rain that could impact some of your plans. It's still dry over Baltimore right now. Temperature is around 88 and mostly cloudy. It's also very humid. It feels like it's in the low 90s. So if you are going to be outside, just make sure that you are staying hydrated and taking breaks in the AC or shade. Across the state, we're mainly seeing the 80s and a few spots still in the 90s right now. Once the rain moves through, though, we are looking at slightly lower temperatures heading into the night. We're under a marginal risk for strong to severe storms. That's threat level 1 of 5, and the primary impacts for us will be gusty winds, along with areas of heavy rain and possibly some hail. Notice around 7 o'clock, we're looking at some areas of heavy rain. Then as we head into getting closer to about midnight, that rain gradually starts to shift to the east. We could be left with a few showers along parts of the eastern shore, but we do stay pretty dry for the rest of the night. We'll wake up to mostly cloudy skies in the morning. Then as we head into the afternoon, possibly a few stray showers and storms. Those rain chances increase as we head into the evening and then overnight. We'll wake up to areas of rain on Sunday. Then into the afternoon, there will be the chance for more rain and storms. That's going to be the best chance for rain this weekend. Then we're looking at a nice and dry start to the work week on Monday. A few more showers and storms on Tuesday, mostly dry on Wednesday, and then that unsettled pattern continues as we finish out the rest of the week. We're talking scattered showers and potential storms. 72 for the low temperature. Will be muggy, and we have those early showers and storms, but we do dry out after midnight. We'll stay mostly cloudy throughout the day tomorrow with just the chance for a few isolated storms for the afternoon. 93 for the high temperature. Rain chances increase overnight and they continue on Sunday. Highs will be around 90. We're looking at 94 on Monday and then 92 on Tuesday with a chance for a few showers and storms. Back to 90 on Wednesday with dry weather. Then we finish out the week with the chance for showers and storms. Temperatures will stay in the upper 80s and the low 90s. Back to you.
An update tonight, 6 months after the death of Lisa Marie. What we have learned about the cause of death of the daughter of Elvis Presley. Over a decade after 11 women were murdered, their killer is caught. The latest on the arrest of the Gilgo Beach killer tonight.
They helped President Biden win the White House, but one crucial group of voters may be looking elsewhere these days. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with a look at a big warning for both parties in 2024.
We're back now with the Fox 45 Quad Box. An arrest tonight, 13 years after the bodies of 11 women were found near Gilgo Beach on Long Island, New York. Authorities today arresting Rex Hewerman, a 59-year-old architect from New York City. Most of the victims were young women who had been sex workers. We now know the cause of death for Lisa Marie, the daughter of Elvis and Priscilla Presley. The Los Angeles County Medical Examiner says she died this January due to complications from a bariatric surgery. She was 54. The House has voted to cut Pentagon's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and staff. This was part of an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. Democrats say they won't support the move. And the CDC, meanwhile, is facing budget cuts. The health agency is losing about $1.3 billion in funds. It was part of the negotiation to avoid a debt ceiling last month. You're looking now at live pictures from the White House as the battle for the presidency continues. Young voters under the age of 30 are often seen as the key to winning an election. They helped propel President Obama to the White House, Biden too, and Democrats have had an inside lane as of late. But some new insights show that coveted demographic, well, it may be drifting and less prone to call themselves Democrats. Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman looks at why and how the GOP will also have its own new challenges in 2024.
Be it environmental issues, the fight over reproductive rights, or racial equality concerns, young voters of recent years have been drawn more to Democrats and made it their party of choice. President Biden won 60% of them in 2020.
And I especially want to thank the young people of this nation who, I'm told, I haven't seen the numbers, voted historic numbers again.
But Politico reports there's a hurdle on the horizon, young voters drifting away from the party, and that spells trouble, citing a Biden pollster who says voters under 30 today are less likely to identify as Democrats compared to the spring of 2019. More consider themselves independents, and fewer see politics as a meaningful way to create change. And if these voters stay home in 2024, that could doom the incumbent president and Democrats. Restoring faith could be a heavy lift.
At this time in history, it's really important to persuade the American people that democracy works.
Republicans, too, see apathy due to skepticism. Only 22% of GOP voters say they have high confidence the votes in 2024 will be tallied accurately, which could dissuade them from taking part at all.
Here's what Republican primary voters need. Two things they need more than anything else. They need the truth. The truth matters. And they haven't gotten the truth from either Joe Biden or from Donald Trump.
Just as Trump is tapping into less traditional news sources these days, choosing edgy podcast appearances with a younger, often much different audience.
The last time we had you on, it was our biggest episode ever, obviously. 7 million views in 24 hours. It was crushing, going viral.
Yet voter enthusiasm is waning due to infighting, a potential retread of the same candidates, and age. Donald Trump, 77, President Biden, 80. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Fox 45 News is demanding answers for the family of the late Elijah Cummings, why they're involved in a back and forth with a Baltimore cemetery over a headstone. And the Board of Estimates gave tens of thousands of dollars to a nonprofit run by the mayor's girlfriend. What we're learning about the funding tonight. And city councilors say there are still too many questions surrounding Monzi. We're joined by one of the city leaders demanding more transparency from the program.
although I appreciate the honesty and straightforwardness that we've gotten in some instances, we haven't gotten very many answers.
Well, last night, the Baltimore City Council grilled leaders from the police department, Monzi, and the city's transportation and housing departments on the failures leading up to the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Now, during that hearing, interim Monzi director Stephanie Mavronis said Safe Streets workers at the party mediated 5 conflicts.
Those mediations were reported to Monzi, but the agency and Catholic Charities, the community-based organization running the Safe Streets location, did not answer council members last night when they were asked if the conflicts involved weapons. Right now, Fox 45's Taylor Stewart breaks down how much money is still going towards Monzi as these questions persist.
Amid questions about a communication breakdown between the mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement and police following the Brooklyn Homes mass shooting, we're taking a closer look at the city agency managing millions of dollars in federal funding to keep Baltimore safe. Just last month, the mayor's office announced Monzi would receive $13.4 million in ARP funding to improve public safety. Government watchdog Adam Andrzejewski, CEO of Open the Books, says some of those nonprofits receiving that money aren't even registered with the state.
We have the smaller organizations that received in the aggregate $125,000 on this recent announced set of grants that, again, they're not in compliance with the Maryland Secretary of State.
Meanwhile, Andrzejewski says that citywide curfew for minors under the mayor's summer crime plan has cost taxpayers upwards of $500,000, as a new study on Baltimore's curfew plan shows slim to no effect in reducing crime.
So it's been about $500,000 that the mayor's office has put into curfew enforcement this year. The Marshall Project says that curfews have little effect on crime. Look, 38% increase in property crimes this year in the city of Baltimore. There's been 5,300 major crimes. We're talking, murders and rapes and carjackings.
In the Fox 45 newsroom, I'm Taylor Stewart.
Well, there are still serious questions surrounding what Monzi does, its effectiveness, and how its funding is used.
We are joined now by City Councilman Yitzi Schleifer tonight. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, last night you had the opportunity to question Monzi's interim director about their response to the Brooklyn Day crowd and shooting. Were you satisfied with their responses, and what questions do you still have?
No, we were left with more questions than answers. And so the questions that are still outstanding is really, what is Monzi's process to handle events like this? We got together last night for 4.5 hours to try to figure out what the next steps are. And it is unclear that if an event like that were to take place tonight, what should happen and who should be responsible for what aspects.
Councilman Schleifer, when you asked for details on what Safe Streets workers at the party knew and when they knew it, that led to an exchange with interim Monzi director Stephanie Mavronis. Let's listen into that for a moment.
Since the event to now, have you met with the representatives, the 4 violence interrupters who were there, to go through what they knew when they knew it?
I just want to offer that these are not staff of the city of Baltimore. These are staff of Catholic Charities. And so while we do have mediation information that's filed with us as far as how we document cases that are mediated, and I've had the opportunity to speak to many of the folks from the site, some of whom were there on the ground, I would defer to Catholic Charities to speak to that.
Doesn't your office oversee Safe Streets?
Our office oversees the program. We serve as a technical assistance provider and ensure the integrity of the model.
So Ms. Mavronis said Catholic Charities has details on what happened. To you, Councilman Schleifer, is that an acceptable response or accountability for a program getting millions of taxpayer dollars?
Absolutely not. When things are going well or Safe Streets area is successful, Monzi gets out there and in front of it and takes credit for that success. And so when something goes wrong, it was quite shocking to see them completely defer to Catholic Charities on this when it's clear to everybody in the city that Safe Streets is a Monzi function.
And multiple members of the City Council have voiced their concern over Monzi and Safe Streets spending. Councilman Glover even going as far as to call for Monzi funding to be paused. Do you agree with that proposal?
Look, I'm all for spending money where it works and not spending money where it's not working. And right now, we don't have even a clear metric on how to measure whether or not it's working or not. And so certainly Monzi needs to come forth and explain what their process is and how they can measure whether or not they're succeeding or not before they should be getting future money.
Councilman Schleifer, we've heard others this week, including Marcus Strider-Dent with the Guardian Angels. I know you know him. He's been in Baltimore for years. They're trying to make a difference like other organizations. I want to take this a step further. Is it possible that you or any of your colleagues might call for scrapping Monzi altogether?
Look, I'm not quite sure really what they're doing. If they're providing, just oversight to Catholic Charities is a very strong organization. It's one of the strongest organizations the city has. And so I'm not sure why Monzi needs to even be involved. Why not just pass on these responsibilities straight to Catholic Charities and then we no longer have to pay Monzi all the money that we're paying them for those functions.
All right, Councilman Schleifer, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, a baby is on the way. Mayor Brandon Scott taking to the internet today, revealing he's going to be a father. Fox 45's Mackenzie Frost joins us live in studio now. Mackenzie, what can you tell us?
Well, Maxine, the mayor made the announcement on social media this morning. You can see it here in this Instagram post here talking about baby Charm arriving in the winter of 2024. We know that his girlfriend is involved in an organization that got $25,000 in a grant from the city last year, and that's what we're questioning City Hall about today.
Thank you.
Mayor Brandon Scott making the first public statement about his big announcement.
My first child, baby Charm, will be joining us this winter. Thank you.
A baby on the way with Hannah Pugh, operations director for Be More Empowered. The group says it provides programming for Black girls and women in Baltimore.
Good morning. The December 14th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order.
In December, Be More Empowered got a $25,000 chunk of Baltimore's $641 million federal COVID relief money. The grant, approved by the city's spending board on December 14th.
The ayes have it. The routine agenda has been adopted.
Be More Empowered says the funding will be given to Ballet After Dark to run a yoga and dance therapy program. The mayor did not abstain from voting on that grant item in December.
There should have been an immediate recusal of the mayor.
David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, says this is the latest example of why the Board of Estimates needs changing to provide more oversight of the city's spending.
The checks and balances are clearly not in place in Baltimore City and on the Board of Estimates.
Meanwhile, the mayor's team tells Fox 45 News Mayor Scott had not met Pugh yet when Be More Empowered applied for the grant in June of 2022, adding, quote, Mayor Scott has always and will always uphold the highest ethical standard. Now, the mayor and his girlfriend were seen at the same event yesterday for Downtown Partnership's funding announcement for Black-owned businesses. Be More Empowered received funding for storefront improvements. Meanwhile, the baby is due early next year, which will come amid the mayor's campaign for re-election. The primary election is set to take place May 14th. We're live in the studio. Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
She paid for it. We paid for it. Just give her what she paid for.
Fox 45 News is hearing an emotional account of a Baltimore woman at her mother's gravesite.
She says a year and a half after burying the matriarch, the family is still waiting for closure.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson is live right now at Lorraine Park Cemetery with the story you're seeing first on Fox. Amy.
Yes, this family is sharing pages of emails dating back more than a year questioning this cemetery about their mother's gravesite. And this week they decided they'd had enough, coming to us, hoping to shake some answers loose. Among the loved ones buried at Lorraine Park Cemetery is the late Dorothy Cummings.
She was a single mom of 4 girls.
Cummings lived well into her 70s and passed January 3rd, 2022. And while death and funerals often bring closure, still no closure for this family.
It's been a year and a half, and I call and I keep calling.
As Dorothy's youngest daughter says they've been unable to get answers about the headstone that's supposed to mark this final resting place.
We're not looking for anything from this other than what should be there. She's there. We want to know that she's there.
According to this daughter, Cummings planned and paid for her own end-of-life arrangements, picking out a plot at Lorraine Park years ago. This mock-up showing the headstone that's now MIA, which they say cost more than $2,000.
Family claims cemetery staff haven't explained the delay, also accusing Lorraine Park Cemetery of dodging their phone calls.
I can see if we didn't pay for it, and if we hadn't paid for it, I'm sure you would have been calling us if you produced a product that we hadn't paid for.
Turns out Miss Cummings, also a first cousin to the late Congressman Elijah Cummings.
It should not take for us to name drop and for me to say, you know, Elijah Cummings is my cousin and my mom's first. Shouldn't take all of that. It should just be a consumer paying their money to get what it is that they paid for.
At her gravesite today,
I would venture to say here, like right here. She would be right here, somewhere in here, in this area. This is it.
This daughter with no choice but to guess which unmarked plot holds her mother's remains, getting emotional.
If we could fix it and move her somewhere, it's another story.
Anxious for the whole family to finally be at peace.
And all we want is what we paid for, what she paid for. She paid for that. You know, she left enough money to cover her headstone.
Now, Maxine and Kai, I did get a call back from a cemetery employee this afternoon who at first said they'd look into this on Monday, but then another call back and some questioning. They admitted that this headstone was delivered allegedly to the wrong place a month or two ago. They were unable to provide or unwilling to provide any more specifics, and also still unable to say when that headstone will arrive here and be installed here at that gravesite at Lorraine Park. Meanwhile, family says they were never notified. Reporting live tonight, Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Amy, good work. Thank you. Fox 45 is working for you, the viewer. If you have a story you'd like our newsroom to look into, here is how to contact us. You can give us a call or send your tips through email at news@foxbaltimore.com.
Despite months of fighting, thousands of Howard County families and students won't be getting their school buses back when school starts. Transportation was a big topic at Thursday night's Howard County Board of Education meeting. The board spent more than 5 hours discussing changes to transportation. 3,500 students are losing bus service. For months, parents and community members have complained it's not safe for their kids, especially young ones, to walk nearly a mile to school.
In short, this county has identified that it's not a safe walking route due to the speeding and sight restrictions, and yet the public school system wants our 5-year-olds to walk that route. It's simply irresponsible. I've emailed the transportation office 5 different times beginning on May 2nd, and our route has still not been assessed. The only responses from the office are canned replies without substance.
Well, in the end, board members opted for the superintendent to monitor the transportation situation for the first 60 days of the school year to see what's working and what's not. The global supply for 2 key cancer drugs is running thin. The impact of the shortage and what can be done to help patients who need it now. A knock at the door turns into a violent attack, the latest on the search for one of Maryland's most wanted suspects.
And showers and storms continue to move east. I'll let you know when to expect rain and storms in the Baltimore area in my Weather Authority forecast.
A man knocks on the door of a Baltimore home looking for work. The people inside unaware it was a violent ploy to steal by any means necessary. Here's Alexa Ashwell with Maryland's Most Wanted.
Investigators say this was a violent home invasion, and a key piece of information left with one of the victims led them to this man, Darius Walton, 18 years old and on the run.
April 5th, 2023, North Baltimore's Harwood neighborhood. Two men are doing contract work inside a home here on Boone Street when suddenly there's a knock at the front door. On the other side, investigators say a young man.
He tells them his first name. He identifies himself as D.
Investigators say D asked the men for a job. They don't have any work for him, but take down the teen's name and number. He leaves, and the men get back to work. But minutes later, another knock at the door, this time coming from the back of the home.
The individual comes back with another male. This time, he's not claiming to be looking for work. Instead, he's offering.
But the request and offer, all part of a ploy, investigators say, to get into the house. Inside, D and his accomplice pull out their guns.
So him and the other male pull out handguns and rob these individuals at gunpoint.
According to investigators, demanding the victims' wallets, cash, and belongings, and even pistol whipping one of them.
He had to receive medical attention.
D and his accomplice flee with more than $1,000 in cash. The victims call 911, one of them remembering what turned out to be a key piece of information in the case. During the ploy, D had left them with a phone number.
He leaves them his name and phone number.
Right, so he tells them his first name, he identifies himself as D, and he gives them his real phone number.
What turned out, investigators say, to be his actual cell number.
They traced the number back to the individual in question and positively identified Darius Walton as the suspect.
Darius Walton, a young man who had just turned 18 from Baltimore. Investigators say leads to his whereabouts and attempts to identify his accomplice have run dry. The U.S. Marshal Service fearing it's only a matter of time before they may strike again.
Right now, we have 2 guns that are on the street unaccounted for, and we have at least 2 suspects that are involved in armed robberies.
Armed, wanted, and on the run.
And we have every reason to believe that he has continued to be armed and dangerous. It's in the interest of public safety to get him off the streets.
Take a good look. Darius Walton, also known as D, stands at about 5'10 and weighs approximately 120 pounds. Investigators believe it's likely he's still in the Baltimore region, possibly receiving help from family or friends. If you have any information regarding his whereabouts, the U.S. Marshal tip line number right here, 1-877-WANTED-2. Or you can contact agents directly at 202-819-5058. Remember, you can always remain anonymous, and you could earn a reward. I'm Alexa Ashwell, and this is Maryland's Most Wanted.
We are tracking some wicked weather tonight. The FAA has issued a ground stop at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport. That means departures will be paused until thunderstorms in the area pass. Now, most of the cancellations we're seeing are on Southwest Airlines, so you may want to check with the airline before heading out to the airport to travel or to pick someone up. At the same time, a live look at Camden Yards right now. While fans are excited for the O's returning to Baltimore, that rain could put a damper on those plans. Here's meteorologist Jasmine Lomax with your forecast. Jasmine, what do you think? We're going to get this game in or what?
I think it's going to be a big risk. We do have those showers and storms that are heading our way, and we're already starting to see those on the HD radar right now. The orange box is for a severe thunderstorm warning. So now part of Montgomery County under that severe thunderstorm warning as those showers and storms continue to move east. So that line will drive toward our area over the next few hours. And unfortunately, that does mean rain, and it could have impacts on the game tonight. Around the region, we're still keeping track of showers and storms. We have a cold front to our west, and that will continue to move east over the weekend, meaning more rain and storms possibly impacting your plans. 88 for the current temperature. It still feels like it's in the 90s. It's very hot, very steamy as we get ready for that next weather maker. Our temperatures are in the 80s and the 90s across most of the state. Now we're looking at a marginal risk for our region. That's for the dark green. That's threat level 1 of 5. And we're mainly talking gusty winds, possibly some hail, and even heavy rain within those thunderstorms. Around 7 o'clock, we are looking at rain and possibly some heavy rain at times. This continues over the state until we get to about midnight. That's when the rain starts to gradually move to the east. We'll stay mostly dry after that and heading into the day tomorrow. We'll wake up to mostly cloudy skies. Temperatures start off mild, but it does get hot. We're returning to the 90s tomorrow afternoon. There could be a stray shower or storm, but those rain chances continue as we head into the evening and overnight. We'll wake up to some areas of rain on Sunday morning. Then as we head later into the day, we'll have another round of rain and storms on the way. That will be the best chance for rain over the weekend. So if you do have any plans tomorrow, we're just talking a few spotty showers and storms, not a washout, but the rain chances increase for Sunday. We'll be nice and dry on Monday before more storms arrive on Tuesday. Then we're looking at mostly dry weather for Wednesday. After that, we are ending the work week with the chance for scattered showers and more storms. 72 for the low temperature overnight with early showers, then drying out after midnight. Tomorrow, we're looking at 93 with more clouds moving in. We have that chance for stray storms for the afternoon. Then rain chances increase on Sunday, 90 for the high temperature. 94 with plenty of sunshine on Monday. Then rain returns on Tuesday. After that, we're looking at 90 on Wednesday, 90 on Thursday and Friday with a chance for storms as we end the upcoming work week. Back to you.
Thank you, Jasmine. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock, Black Lives Matter is celebrating its 10th anniversary, the renewing push to defund the police.
Cancer patients battling for their lives now facing another life-threatening situation. I'm Angela Brown in Washington, D.C. The cancer treatment shortage that doctors are calling devastating.
Some cancer patients are facing another life-threatening situation, a shortage of common treatments. The National Desk, Angela Brown, is getting answers from doctors.
but two.
Doctors are calling the shortage of these two drugs
a drug called carboplatin and a drug called cisplatin.
Devastating.
And the reason they're so important is because they're used for multiple different cancers.
They're really critical for a lot of cancer types, and that's why this particular shortage is so disastrous.
Used to treat a range of cancers like colon cancer, head and neck cancer, and even some breast cancers.
And they're used often at times when we're hoping to cure a patient.
Driving the shortage? A factory in India involved in making these drugs halted production after inspection, setting off a widespread shortage right here in America. Dr. Graylow from the American Society of Clinical Oncology says the agency is issuing guidance suggesting other drugs and stretching supply.
Some patients who would really benefit from these drugs who are either having them delayed or maybe not receiving them entirely.
A long-term solution is far more complicated. Dr. Dayhut from the American Cancer Society says these generic drugs have very little profit in their production.
There is not an incentive for other manufacturers, to be building new plants and to manufacture because they don't make much money when they sell it, to be honest with you.
The FDA is allowing some versions of cisplatin from other countries into the U.S. that are registered with the FDA. But the key is getting that factory in India back online. Reporting in Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
We're currently dealing with showers and storms moving across the state, and unfortunately, there's more rain for the weekend. Tomorrow will be mostly cloudy for the afternoon, but there's a chance for a few stray showers during the afternoon. High temperatures reach the low 90s. We'll be in the low 90s again on Sunday with more rain and storms. I'll have a look at the timing coming up in my full forecast in about 20 minutes. Back to you.
Jasmine, thank you. Coming up on Fox 45 News at 5 o'clock tonight, new efforts from President Biden to forgive student loans, why some critics argue it will cost taxpayers millions. Plus, the extreme heat is having a national impact, how you can stay safe as those temperatures soar.
It's a tragic, horrendous event that really shook this city to its core.
Baltimore City Council members grill city agencies on the communication failure surrounding the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Fox 45 News analyzes all sides.
Another day of arguments in the trial of the man accused of killing a pregnant Baltimore woman. The new details just into our newsroom.
The checks and balances are clearly not in place in Baltimore.
Plus, Mayor Brandon Scott making a big announcement today how it plays into a controversial move by the Board of Estimates.
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 5.
Well, Fox 45 News is tracking storms across our region at this hour. Right now, there's a ground stop at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport, and it's been extended through 6 o'clock tonight because of these storms.
Most of the delays we're seeing right now are across Southwest Airlines. Again, a ground stop issued at BWI through 6 o'clock tonight. Thanks so much for sticking with us. I'm Maxine Stryker.
And I'm Kai Jackson. We are keeping an eye on more scattered storms moving through the region.
Let's provide you now with some live pictures. You're taking a look at our weather radar, the Inner Harbor and Towson. The Orioles, they have a game tonight, so we'll be keeping a close eye on how the storms affect that game.
Meteorologist Jasmine Lomax has the latest right now on what you can expect through the rest of our evening. Hopefully it'll cool down, but Jasmine, you said don't keep your fingers crossed on that one.
No, we just have a very hot, very humid pattern. Unfortunately, that's going to continue this weekend. The heat, humidity, and even rain and storms in the forecast. Now, currently, we're seeing some severe storms across parts of Montgomery County. That's the latest area to be included in a severe thunderstorm alert. We're also seeing a few showers around the Baltimore area. Currently, the heaviest of rain, though, still to our west. It will gradually move to the east over the next few hours. So if you are planning on going anywhere, just make sure that you have the rain gear and, of course, check the radar before you head out. Now, we are under a marginal risk for strong to severe storms, threat level 1 of 5. I'll let you know the impacts that we could see and when the rain finally moves out in my Weather Authority forecast. Back to you.
We're here today, really, though, to parse through all that happened that night, to really begin to get an understanding of what went wrong.
We demand to know the minute-by-minute details of how a cultural tradition for the past 27 years turned into an unruly, unmanageable block party that forever changed the lives of 30 people and cutting short the lives of 2 young people.
Baltimore city leaders grill city agencies on the communication failures of the Brooklyn Day mass shooting.
Last night, city council members pressed BPD, Monzi, and other agencies on where the disconnect occurred during one of the city's largest mass shootings. 18-year-old Alaya Gonzalez and 20-year-old Kailas Fagbemi were killed and 28 others were injured. One teen has been arrested and is facing gun charges, but no charges for that actual shooting. And there seems to be a disconnect between the BPD and Safe Streets workers. Safe Streets workers were at the block party hours before the shooting, but never informed police of any threats.
We have live team coverage tonight covering all angles of this hearing. Rebecca Pryor is looking into the Baltimore Police Department's response and when they were originally aware of the crowds. But we begin with Mackenzie Frost. Mackenzie has more information surrounding Monzi and how Safe Streets workers played a role in the communication failures of that day. Mackenzie.
Kai, we're learning the mediations completed by the Safe Streets workers have yet to be reviewed by Monzi staff, so it's unclear who was involved or not. But really, this all comes down to transparency. We've been asking some of the same questions that council members asked last night for nearly 2 years. How does the Safe Streets program operate? What are the protocols for Safe Streets and Monzi, and how is the money being spent? Now, several council members are demanding to know what's going on, even going as far as calling for the funding to halt.
After hours of being in the hot seat,
from Monday, July 3rd,
the interim director of the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement leaving council members with more questions than answers Thursday. Especially when it comes to why Safe Streets workers did not alert anyone that the Brooklyn Day block party was happening when they were there Saturday evening.
A lot of concerns that they couldn't answer basic questions, that they haven't reviewed the after-action reports of the 5 incidents that occurred that day. This is an agency that we're giving $20+ million to and has 40+ employees. Work should have been done.
No, they're getting over $20 million. Like, we have to have some transparency. We've been asking for that information for a very, very long time.
Councilman Antonio Glover going a step further than any elected leader has so far.
Should Monzi be getting the level of funding that it is?
Right now, I think that until we start to see transparency in data, I think that that money should be held to a halt.
Friday, we questioned Mayor Brandon Scott about the council's concerns.
One councilman called for the funding for Monzi to be paused until there's more transparency and more answers about how the organization operates. How do you respond to that? And do you believe that Monzi bears some responsibility or is complicit in what happened a week and a half ago, given the fact that Safe Streets workers...
We're going to say this and say this again. The only people responsible for what happened in Brooklyn are those who pulled the trigger. Monzi's funding is not going to be stopped because we know they're out here saving lives each and every day.
While the mayor defends the flagship gun violence prevention program in his administration, the questions continue, especially when talking about the mediations central to Safe Streets' response to the block party Saturday. Those mediations were not recorded the night in the Safe Streets internal software system.
Has anybody in Monzi then in your agency reviewed those 5 incidents before?
No, we have not reviewed those that have been put in.
We don't know if they are also the same, if they're connected to this event, or whether or not they're also people of interest in this event.
I can't say if that's true or false.
We pressed the mayor about those transparency and accountability concerns, too.
Will you direct your mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement to comply with the questions and provide the information that the council asked for?
Well, I don't know what the questions are. Anyone that thinks that we're going to talk about an open investigation where someone could potentially be a witness in Baltimore, the city that we've seen witnesses killed, that's very irresponsible of anybody to do. We're not going to do that. Period.
But that's not what the council is asking for.
I'm not asking who the conflicts are between. I'm not asking who mediated the conflicts. I'm not asking any specific information like that.
What we have seen is that they weren't ready for this.
David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, agrees with Councilman Glover about pausing Monzi funding until more details are provided, saying the city deserves to know how their tax dollars are being spent.
Taxpayers want to know, but most importantly, the citizens of Baltimore want to know, is that if you're going to be spending tens of millions of dollars on programs to interrupt violence, is it working? Do they have a plan in place?
But right now, the funding isn't stopping, and the questions aren't being answered.
Now, I asked Monzi today how Safe Streets workers knew about the Brooklyn Day block party in the first place, especially since Monzi says they didn't know ahead of time. So far, we haven't gotten an answer. Live in the studio, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
And this brings us now to our question of the day. Do you believe Monzi's funding should be frozen? Right now, 96% of those who responded say yes. You can vote at foxbaltimore.com/vote.
I think the department has more questions to answer. You know, what action did the department take? Was it the appropriate action? Doesn't seem like it was. Certainly not in hindsight.
Well, following last night's public safety hearing, police leadership remains in the hot seat. Many were left frustrated by lack of answers, and now the police union is sounding off on social media. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor breaks down the fiery response from the FOP and what questions still linger in the department itself. Rebecca?
Yeah, Kai, as the department continues its internal investigation into what went wrong, the police union is now firing back at BPD leadership, saying that the focus of that investigation is misplaced. During last night's hearing, Acting Commissioner Worley said many questions remain over who knew what and when, specifically surrounding why officers failed to mobilize after being alerted of the large Brooklyn Day gathering hours before shots rang out.
A party of that magnitude, no matter how many officers were in the Southern District, they could not handle that party alone. So they would have had to reach for extra resources, which we had available throughout the city, that we could have sent there. Do we know if that happened, or as far as we know, no?
Entire City Council for your time this evening. My name is Stephanie.
Now that line of questioning is what's sparking that fiery response from BPD's police union. FOP President Mike Mancuso taking to Twitter, arguing BPD's rank and file are not to blame for the Brooklyn Day mass shooting. Instead, he says a lack of staff is the biggest mistake, writing, quote, maximizing patrol staffing would have prevented it. Today, I spoke with former Deputy Commissioner Jason Johnson about the issue. Here's what he had to say about BPD's lack of manpower.
There's no question that the BPD staffing shortages played an enormous part, not only in the Brooklyn mass shooting, but also in just the general day-to-day violence that you see in the city. The department just has very, very limited resources.
Now, Johnson adds that the events and the evidence leading up to the shooting should still be an important part of BPD's internal investigation. But again, he says that lack of staffing is a main factor. Reporting live from FOP headquarters, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Rebecca, thank you. The president of Baltimore City's chapter of the NAACP speaking during public comment last night, criticizing acting Commissioner Worley.
He, along with the NAACP, spoke out about the mayor's appointment of Worley last month, saying he should have opened a broader search for Harrison's replacement. Last night, he doubled down on that criticism.
This incident, we told you guys this incident was going to happen when we had our last press conference. This is why you need community engagement on the front end before you bring in a police commissioner. So I hope that every member of this council is taking very seriously your responsibility to vet a police commissioner.
The mass shooting was the first major test for acting Police Commissioner Worley. He took over less than a month before the shooting happened on June 8th after former Commissioner Michael Harrison stepped down.
Fox 45 News has been pressing the mayor's office for answers about the abrupt change for weeks. We've asked for a copy of Commissioner Harrison's resignation letter. The mayor's office refuses to hand it over, saying it's a personnel matter. We've also asked if Harrison was asked to resign or if he resigned of his own accord. Why he resigned just 8 months before his contract ended, and does the public deserve to know the terms of Harrison's resignation? Right now, we're learning more about that transition. In an interview with another news outlet, Harrison and Mayor Scott said Worley found out that he was chosen as police commissioner less than 12 hours before the announcement was made. In the wake of the mass shooting, the mayor told Fox 45 News he's confident his confidence in Worley hasn't changed. Despite months of fighting, thousands of Howard County families and even students won't be getting their school buses back before the start of the new year.
Now, transportation was the headlining topic of Thursday night's Howard County Board of Education meeting. The board spending nearly half of the 5-hour meeting discussing the changes to transportation, which include 3,500 students losing school bus service. For months, parents and community members have expressed their concerns, mostly with the safety of young children walking upwards of a mile to get to school.
In short, this county has identified that it's not a safe walking route due to the speeding and sight restrictions, and yet the public school system wants our 5-year-olds to walk that route. It's simply irresponsible. I've emailed the transportation office 5 different times beginning on May 2nd, and our route has still not been assessed. The only responses from the office are canned replies without substance.
In the end, board members opted for the superintendent to monitor the transportation situation for the first 60 days of the school year to see what's working and what's not. Still ahead after the break, the man accused of killing a Baltimore woman and her unborn baby appears in court today. The new details we're learning.
Frustration for one family trying to get a headstone for their deceased loved one. How long they've been waiting.
Plus, a major pop star impacting the state of the economy. How much money Taylor Swift is bringing in through her Eras tour.
We have continuing coverage. Four more witnesses took the stand in Michael Robertson's murder trial. Robertson is accused of killing his pregnant girlfriend, Akia Egleston, and their unborn child in 2017.
Family reported Akia missing after she failed to show up for her baby shower. She was 8 months pregnant at the time.
Alexa Ashwell has been covering this case since Egleston was first reported missing. She joins us with an update. Alexa.
Connie Maxine, one of those four witnesses who testified today, Michael Robertson's brother. He told the court he saw the defendant on May 3rd, 2017, the day investigators believe Akia was in fact killed. The brother of Michael Robertson, the first to take the stand as week one of the Akia Egleston murder trial wraps up. Kenneth Robertson telling the jury Michael came to his house on May 3rd, 2017, the last day investigators say anyone saw or heard from Akia. Kenneth testifying the two drank beer and played Xbox, and when questioned, confirmed Michael normally doesn't bring over beer, and his wife didn't want him at the home. The state also entering into evidence text messages between the brothers. On May 3rd, Michael wrote, "I'm on the 35." A bus line indicating he was on his way to Kenneth's house. Then on May 8th, Kenneth instructs Michael to call his paternal cousin. That cousin testifying in court the day before. Then the woman told the jury she was trying to reach Michael after Akia failed to show up for her baby shower on May 7th and questioned Michael on the whereabouts of the mother of his other children, claiming she had previously attacked Akia. At the start of the trial, the state painting the picture of a love triangle, playing one of Robertson's 3 interviews with police, where Robertson says in part, "We got into it, and I chose Haley." Today, the mother of Haley also taking the stand. She confirmed her daughter and Robertson at one point moved in with her, and that police later interviewed her several times. The woman telling the jury he was no longer welcome in my home, and when asked how Haley is doing now, saying, "So much better." Other testimony today came from Akia's biological father, who told the court he thought Akia was planning to take over his lease around May 2017, but she had never given him a date, and that the last time he saw his daughter was in the hospital, her visit due to her pregnancy. Several other witnesses testifying to the complications Akia was experiencing. When asked, the man confirming Akia wouldn't have been capable of moving herself. The final witness of the week, Robertson's former co-worker. The two had worked at FIG, a company that tears down and rebuilds furniture. The man recalling a conversation with Robertson. Police had come to the job and told his office about his missing girlfriend, and he had been fired, saying he seemed mad that he lost his job.
That just showed that he had no care for Akia at any point in whatever relationship they had.
Outside of court, Akia's family reflecting on the testimony, the most emotional thus far happening from a bank manager, as the state played surveillance video of Akia withdrawing cash, one of the last times she was seen alive.
We already talked about the day Akia was at the bank, so now we're talking about the whereabouts of Mr. Robertson. So it seems like there's a roadmap for the prosecution that they're just going to follow. And it's slow and deliberate for a reason.
One of the state's witnesses still unaccounted for. The prosecution confirming the person was a friend of Akia.
It is concerning to me. I don't know who it is, but it's very concerning because why are you hiding? What do you know? So what they have to say could be very significant to this case.
The defense not yet making any comment. The defense will be able to call witnesses to the stand once the state is finished. The state isn't. Witness testimony is expected to continue Monday. Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
We are keeping track of showers and storms around the state. Right now, the severe storms that we're seeing are in parts of Montgomery County and even in Virginia. We've got that cluster and actually 3 severe thunderstorm warnings in place, mainly for some heavy rain, damaging winds, and also hail possible. Around the Baltimore area, just a little bit of rain there, but these storms will continue to spread east as we head into the next few hours. And that means that if you have any plans, rain could impact those plans, and you want to make sure that you're keeping watch on the radar before you head out. Around the region, we're keeping track of showers and storms. We've got our next cold front that's on the way. That arrives a little bit later on this weekend. Unfortunately, though, not resulting in cooler temperatures, but it will lead to more rain and storms. 88 for the current temperature and mostly cloudy. We are seeing heat indices in the 90s, so it's very steamy outside. Across the state, mostly seeing temperatures in the 80s and 90s. We'll have lower temperatures arriving, though, as that rain moves into the area. We are under a marginal risk. That's for all of the areas in the dark green around the region for strong to severe storms. That's threat level 1 of 5. And what we're mainly seeing with these storms are, again, those areas of heavy rain, gusty winds possible, and also hail possible with these storms. So around 7 o'clock, we're looking at more rain around the state, possibly some areas of heavy rain. Then after midnight, the rain gradually starts to taper. We're still looking at a few lingering showers along the eastern shore, but we start off tomorrow morning with dry weather and mostly cloudy skies. Into the afternoon, there's the chance for a few stray showers and storms, but it's the evening when the rain chances increase. We'll have more rain and storms overnight and possibly some areas of heavy rain. We'll wake up to more showers on Sunday morning. We'll get a brief break from the rain by the afternoon, but a little later on, expect more rain and storms as we continue to deal with an unsettled pattern. Temperatures will be in the 90s tomorrow and again on Sunday. We'll be nice and dry in the 90s on Monday, 90s on Tuesday with more storms. Then as we finish out the work week, more rain and storms staying in the 90s. Back to you.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 5, a major announcement coming from Mayor Brandon Scott. We look into the latest Instagram post just ahead. Plus, a family demanding answers as they push to get a headstone for a deceased loved one. Their calls for accountability as they seek closure.
Black Lives Matter is celebrating its 10th anniversary. I'm Janae Bowens in Washington. I'll tell you about the controversial organization's renewed push to defund the police.
Making headlines tonight, a Black Lives Matter is celebrating its 10th anniversary. The movement was birthed after the acquittal of George Zimmerman. He said he was acting in self-defense when he shot and killed a black 17-year-old named Trayvon Martin in Florida. Black Lives Matter is now renewing their push to defund the police. The National Desk's Janae Bowens explains.
A racist institution rooted in white supremacy.
After 10 years, Black Lives Matter says it's still defund the police and invest in black communities.
260 violent riots just in the last 3 years in the name of Black Lives Matter, where not just police officers, but citizens have been killed, have been injured.
Sergeant Betsy Smith with the National Police Association says BLM's defund the police movement is not only unthinkable, but also part of the reason 9 out of 10 police departments across the country are short-staffed.
The demonization of the American law enforcement officer, combined with the attacks on the criminal justice system in the United States, have led to rising crime rates.
The country largely disagrees with BLM. A 2021 poll from USA Today found fewer than 1 in 5 supported defunding the police. And a 2022 poll of black voters from the GRIO and the Kaiser Family Foundation found 17% support decreasing funding for police departments and 34% support increasing funding for police.
When you try to destroy proactive policing, it's not really the police you're punishing. It's the American public.
Evelise Correa is vice president of a local Black Lives Matter chapter. And like the national organization, she says the solution to crime is not policing.
So we just got over a record pandemic. So something that we've never seen in our lifetime. People were cooped up. There's record poverty. Of course, crime is going to go up. Address those mental health concerns, address the housing, address the food insecurity.
The majority of Americans do not want to defund the police, but polling from Gallup shows the majority are in favor of some sort of police reform. And support for Black Lives Matter has dropped. A Pew Research poll shows less than 10% of Americans say BLM has improved the lives of black people. Reporting for the National Desk, I'm Janae Bowens.
Coming up after the break, a continued push to gain insight into the communication flaws on the day of the Brooklyn mass shooting, the calls for another hearing surrounding safe streets. Plus, housing and insurance costs are on the rise, while some are pointing to the Biden administration's environment and social policies.
More than 800,000 people are about to see their student debt forgiven. I'm Atrell Nashar. Coming up, who this will impact.
Fox 45 News is following three big stories for you at 5:30.
A family is fighting for justice as they continue to push for a headstone for a deceased loved one. Their demands for answers.
Fox 45 continues to follow the fallout from last night's city council hearing into the Brooklyn Day mass shooting, how agency leaders responded to questions surrounding communication failures.
Plus, a major announcement coming from Mayor Brandon Scott. He is expecting his first child.
We have team coverage of our top stories tonight, starting with Mackenzie Frost and the mayor's announcement.
Mackenzie joins us live in studio with the latest. Mackenzie.
Maxine, Kai, the mayor made the announcement on social media this morning. You can see it here in this Instagram photo announcing this big news. We've learned his girlfriend is involved in an organization that got a $25,000 grant from the city last year. And that's what we're questioning City Hall about.
Thank you, thank you.
Mayor Brandon Scott making the first public statement about his big announcement.
My first child, baby Charm, will be joining us this winter. Thank you.
A baby on the way with Hannah Pugh, operations director for Be More Empowered. The group says it provides programming for Black girls and women in Baltimore.
Good morning. The December 14th, 2022 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order.
In December, Be More Empowered got a $25,000 chunk of Baltimore's $641 million federal COVID relief money. The grant, approved by the city's spending board on December 14th.
The ayes have it. The routine agenda has been adopted.
Be More Empowered says the funding will be given to Ballet After Dark to run a yoga and dance therapy program. The mayor did not abstain from voting on that grant item in December.
There should have been an immediate recusal of the mayor.
David Williams, president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, says this is the latest example of why the Board of Estimates needs changing to provide more oversight of the city's spending.
The checks and balances are clearly not in place in Baltimore City and on the Board of Estimates.
Meanwhile, the mayor's team tells Fox 45 News Mayor Scott had not met Pugh yet when Be More Empowered applied for the grant in June of 2022, adding, quote, Mayor Scott has always and will always uphold the highest ethical standard.
Now, the mayor and his girlfriend were at the same event yesterday for the Downtown Partnership's funding announcement for Black-owned businesses. Be More Empowered received funding for storefront improvements. Meanwhile, the baby is due early next year, which will come amid the mayor's campaign for re-election. The primary is set to take place May 14th. Live in the studio, Mackenzie Frost, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 News continues to press city leaders on the communication failures surrounding one of Baltimore's largest mass shootings, if not the largest in city history. Last night, the city council held a hearing to get more insight into what happened that day. Tom Rogers has more on calls for transparency.
Baltimore police local leaders met for a city council hearing to explain the breakdown in communication for the Brooklyn Homes annual block party. It ended with the largest mass shooting in Baltimore City's history. 30 shot and 2 died. But community activist and founder of Act Now Baltimore, Reverend Al Hathaway, says city council members need to keep asking precise questions and make sure Monzi discusses if firearms were prevalent while Safe Streets was resolving 5 conflicts just hours before that shooting.
In terms of working for the people of the city of Baltimore, give succinct answers, clear answers, and those answers should not be colored by feelings or even trying to, as it appeared, to not give information that was needed.
Brooklyn Homes, the entire community knew that this was coming up. Everyone there, hundreds of people, hundreds, if not more than thousands of people knew that this block party was going on. It's an annual block party that they hold. How can the police department and Monzi say that they didn't know that it was happening?
You know, in this instance, that we had HABC saying that there was one person, that one person passed, and therefore they lost communications with a whole community. That was just an improper response. It seems that the agency should have had more boots on the ground in terms of their maintenance staff, in terms of their managing staff.
But if you're Safe Streets and you're working that area, I mean, you have people there on the ground. They know that this was going to happen. They knew that there was going to be hundreds and hundreds of people gathering.
You know, it was clear was that Safe Streets is being protected from giving information up to Monzi as well as to the police department. And the question is, and I think the councilman answered that, why? Why is that?
Reverend Hathaway says city council should hold another hearing 45 days from now to coincide with when Commissioner Worley said the full investigation would be complete to hold BPD and what happened accountable. Tom Rogers, Fox 45 News.
She paid for it. We paid for it. Just give her what she paid for.
Fox 45 News here's the emotional account of a Baltimore woman, her family, at her mother's gravesite.
She says a year and a half after burying the matriarch, the family is still waiting for closure.
Fox 45's Amy Simpson has the story you're seeing first on Fox.
This family sharing pages of emails dating back more than a year questioning this cemetery about their mother's gravesite. But this week they decided they'd had enough, reaching out to us to shake some answers loose. Among the loved ones buried at Lorraine Park Cemetery is the late Dorothy Cummings.
She was a single mom of 4 girls.
Cummings lived well into her 70s and passed January 3rd, 2022. And while death and funerals often bring closure, still no closure for this family.
It's been a year and a half, and I call and I keep calling.
As Dorothy's youngest daughter says they've been unable to get answers about the headstone that's supposed to mark this final resting place.
We're not looking for anything from this other than what should be there. She's there. We want to know that she's there.
According to this daughter, Cummings planned and paid for her own end-of-life arrangements, picking out a plot at Lorraine Park years ago. This mock-up showing the headstone that's now MIA, which they say cost more than $2,000. Family claims cemetery staff haven't explained the delay, also accusing Lorraine Park Cemetery of dodging their phone calls.
I can see if we didn't pay for it, and if we hadn't paid for it, I'm sure you would have been calling us if you produced a product that we hadn't paid for.
Turns out Miss Cummings, also a first cousin to the late Congressman Elijah Cummings.
It should not take for us to name drop and for me to say, you know, Elijah Cummings is my cousin and my mom's first. Shouldn't take all of that. It should just be a consumer paying their money to get what it is that they paid for.
At her gravesite today,
I would venture to say here, like right here. She would be right here, somewhere in here, in this area. This is it.
This daughter with no choice but to guess which unmarked plot holds her mother's remains, getting emotional.
If we could fix it and move her somewhere, it's another story.
Anxious for the whole family to finally be at peace.
And all we want is what we paid for, what she paid for. She paid for that. You know, she left enough money to cover her headstone.
Now, I did get a call back from a cemetery employee this afternoon, and after first saying they'd look into this problem on Monday, I got another call back, and after some questioning, they admitted that this headstone was allegedly mailed and delivered to the wrong place, though they were unable to give specifics, unable to tell me when exactly that headstone will be here at Lorraine Park and when it will be installed. Family says they were never notified. Amy Simpson, Fox 45 News.
Well, Fox 45 is working for you, the viewer. If you have a story that you'd like our newsroom to look into, this is how you can contact us. You can give us a call or send your tips through email at news@foxbaltimore.com. Developing tonight, we are taking you live right now to the White House in Washington, D.C. It was just 2 weeks ago that the U.S. Supreme Court struck down President Biden's plan to forgive student debt for more than 40 million borrowers. On Friday, the administration announced a new move to wipe out $39 billion in student debt for more than 800,000 people. National correspondent Dr. El Nashar has a closer look at how this plan would work.
Fixing a broken student loan repayment system, the White House announced Friday, means more than 804,000 people will see their federal loans forgiven. That system is the Department of Education's income-driven repayment plan that's meant to deliver forgiveness after 20 to 25 years of payments.
But because of problems with the program, these borrowers have not been getting the relief that they've earned.
The White House says often a loan servicer would allow a borrower to pause payments for a period of time, but didn't count that pause time toward the 20 to 25-year timeline toward forgiveness under their income-driven repayment plan.
We believe for many borrowers, they will see their debts go to zero.
The nonprofit Student Borrower Protection Center, which advocates for debt relief, applauds the move, saying in a statement, quote, But make no mistake, over 804,000 people are receiving relief with this action because of 804,000 failures, and this is only the tip of the iceberg, calling for the administration to continue efforts to forgive loans for more borrowers.
Department of Education.
Michael Brickman, an adjunct fellow at the American Enterprise Institute who worked for the Department of Education under former President Trump, says it's another example of what he calls the current administration's piecemeal approach to student debt forgiveness.
It's unclear if anybody will have the ability to sue them, but I think it's yet another example of the Biden administration looking for any opportunity to forgive loans, regardless of if they have congressional authority to do so.
He argues Friday's announcement has the same moral flaws as the program that was struck down by the Supreme Court.
Taxpayers, many of whom did not actually go to college, will bear the burden of this at some point.
And, he says, doesn't address the core issue of college unaffordability.
The White House tells me they believe they are getting to that core issue by expanding